When you have a child, that child becomes your life. This case is about the clash between that responsibility and the expectations that go with it and the life that Casey Anthony wanted to have.
There are no mysteries to solve here. There should be no mystery before you right now. If you have questions, then it was not proven. And that's as simple as it goes. It's as simple as it gets, because that is exactly what is done.
Well, that's both sides, the prosecution and the defense, making their arguments today. The prosecution is up next. A lot of passion in the room, riveting arguments by both sides before this jury, and a long day at that. The judge says they will stay. They've been there since first thing this morning to hear what the prosecutor has to say in their final part of their closing argument. Then tomorrow, jury instruction, and they retire to the jury room to render their verdict. Let's bring in our panel. Joey Jackson is joining us, criminal defense attorney, and a great one at that.
Thank
Kimberly
you, Jamie.
Guilfoyle, a Fox News legal analyst and show host here as well. And also Robert Schalk is joining us, former prosecutor, now a criminal defense attorney. Welcome, Robert. Thanks for being with us.
Good evening.
Let me start with you, Robert, and ask you, you've been watching the proceedings all day. You've been helping us out with it. At this point, the defense made, it seemed, sort of a double closing argument, because first Jose Baez went and piece by piece went through all the evidence saying that the prosecution had not proved their case. Then Cheney Mason gets up and he makes some new points, but primarily repeats a lot of the evidence, except for one I felt very compelling part where he explains how high the burden is again for this jury to convict this defendant. How did they do, and what do you expect the prosecution to say when they come back?
Based upon the opening statement of Jose Baez, I was very impressed by his closing statement today. He made numerous points and poked numerous holes, pointed out consistent inconsistencies in the prosecution's case and their theory. And if he had stuck to this philosophy from the beginning, I think he'd be in a lot better position. Also, Cheney Mason's use of that chart. That chart is something that the jury is going to be able to point each other to. If someone says, perhaps she's guilty, I don't know if she's guilty, I think she did it, but I don't know, they're going to be able to use that chart to steer each other potentially towards a not guilty verdict.
I want to remind our viewers that it has to be unanimous.
It does.
Everybody has to agree on this verdict. You cannot convict her without having it. While it doesn't need to be unanimous on a sentence, it does for an actual verdict.
Yes, because if there's one juror on in that panel who says, I will not convict her of murder in the first degree, she or he could hang that jury and cause either a lesser verdict to be rendered by the other 11 members or potentially a hung jury across the board, and mistrials are always to the benefit of the defense.
It seemed, Kimberly, that George Anthony came up quite a bit in Jose Baez's closing argument, shifting the burden and possibly the responsibility for Kaylee's death away from Casey and toward her father. How will the prosecution respond to that? How do they rehabilitate what Jose Baez claimed?
They've got to do it. You've seized on something really important here. Such emphasis was placed on George Anthony, saying that he's the one, he's the villain. They put him squarely in that box, that she's actually innocent in this case in many ways. Innocent as a child that was victimized, right, by her father, by her brother, brought up in a home of lies, a web of lies. This is the only way she knows how to exist. That the person that had the contact with the duct tape, which is supposed to be part of the way that she was killed, they can only tie that to George Anthony. That was clever by the defense to do that and emphasize that to these jurors as they go back into that deliberation room and think about it. However, if I'm the prosecutor, you're going to come out there, you're going to say, give me a break. Why would George Anthony do this? This is a veteran homicide police officer, right? He's going to cover up a case, put the body close to the house. All of this would then tie back to his daughter and put her in peril, where now she fights for her life in a death penalty prosecution. If he had told the truth and say it was an accident, his daughter would be set free. So why would he have the motivation to do this? And why wouldn't he have called 911? There would be no charges.
Joey Jackson, let's ask you about some of those inconsistencies. Sure. One of the big ones was the chloroform. Evidence that chloroform was Googled, basically, and Cindy, her mother, said that she did it, yet they brought in witnesses from her work, her boss, showing that she was at work not at the home computer during the time she was supposedly Googling that. Today there were two conflicting reports. One that said chloroform was mentioned only once, another time 84 times. So what does the jury do with that? And also there was the Facebook page of boyfriend Tony that said basically win her over with chloroform, showing a picture of girls at a nightclub, inferring that there was no search for chloroform to kill the little girl.
Sure,
there was
out
chloroform to check out the boyfriend.
Absolutely.
Does that negate one of the biggest issues in this case?
You know what? I don't know that it negates it, Eric, but it certainly sheds light upon the doubt issue, the big chart that we just saw, and was there and is there doubt in this case? Look, the jury is going to evaluate that issue, that is the chloroform, but they're going to match it up versus all the other things that occurred. Now, I did think that Jose Baez did a very effective job in terms of taking you through all of the evidence, showing the inconsistencies, and really attacking the prosecution here, attacking the process. We want you to demonize. They want you to demonize her so that you would hate her, and therefore you would view the evidence out of a tainted lens, saying she goes down. And then, of course, looking at the science, attacking the science, first time for everything. So I think that was effective. I think also, Eric, I might have stopped there. I mean, Cheney Mason, very folksy, you know, very good at what he does, but, you know, I mean, come on. I think the jury gets it. They grow weary. I don't know that the double, as Jamie has referred to it before, the double closing was that effective. Close, be effective, get out, let the prosecution get up, make their points, and then let the jury decide.
You think the jury can get the emotion out of it and look at the facts?
It's always tough. That's what you want a jury to do, and of course they'll be charged on that. It's not something that's based on emotion. You have to evaluate the evidence on the evidence without prejudice, you know, without viewing emotion to this. But it's difficult because people are people, and at the end of the day, we all view things in perhaps maybe an emotional way. But I think that, you know, look, the jury's been there a long time. I think they get it, and ultimately they'll draw the proper conclusion, whatever that is.
All right, we're going to take a quick break because I want to ask you about the duct tape. The prosecution says the duct tape was the murder weapon. The defense says George Anthony had custody and control of the duct tape. Which is it? We'll be right back.